Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Monday, November 26, 2018. Big podcast today. NFL, college hoops, NBA, NHL. I want to do a couple newsworthy things and then my best bet. I was going to do college football power rankings today, but I'm going to push that to tomorrow since the college football playoff rankings come out tomorrow. I'll start at the NFL. The Eagles come from behind 16 points down to defeat the Giants 25-22. Much needed win for Philly to save their season, save their hopes at the NFC East. Certainly the Alex Smith injury has really opened things up for them in Dallas. They go to 5-6. The Giants, their slim hopes at NFC East comeback, whatever they wanted, ends. They're 3-8. Carson Wentz had a nice day. 20 of 28, 236 yards and a touchdown. Eli Manning, 26 of 37, 297 yards, a touchdown and an interception. The Bills defeated the Jaguars 24-21. There's big Jaguar news that I'm going to get to on this podcast. They dropped the 3-8. Buffalo is 4-7. Josh Allen is back. 8 of 19, 160 yards and a touchdown. And 13 carries for 99 yards and a touchdown as well. Blake Bortles, 12 of 23, 127 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. The Browns defeat the Bengals 35-20. Impressive win for the Browns. They are now 4-6-1. Cincinnati's 5-6. Baker Mayfield, 19 of 26, 258 yards and 4 touchdowns. Jeff Driscoll, 17 of 29, 155 yards and a touchdown. He came in for Andy Dalton, who injured his hand. Dalton, 10 for 17, 100 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. The Patriots feed the Jets 27-13. The Patriots are 8-3. The Jets are 3-8. Tom Brady, 20 of 31, 283 yards, 2 touchdowns. Rob Gronkowski came back in this game as well as Sonny Michel. Both those players had impacts in this game. Josh McCown, 26 of 45, 276 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. The Buccaneers defeat the 49ers 27-9. The Bucs go to 4-7. San Francisco 2-9. Jameis Winston, 29 of 38, 312 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nick Mullins, 18 of 32, 221 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. So a regression game for him after 2 solid ones. The Seahawks defeat the Panthers 30-27 on a game-winning field goal by Sebastian Janikowski. They go to 6-5. Carolina drops to 6-5. Russell Wilson has to be in the conversation now for the MVP. 22 of 31, 339 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cam Newton, 25 of 30, 256 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. The Ravens defeat the Raiders 34-17. The Ravens are 6-5. Oakland's 2-9. Lamar Jackson, 14 of 25, 178 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Derek Carr, 16 of 34, 194 yards, and a touchdown. Late afternoon games, the Chargers defeat the Cardinals 45-10. Cardinals were up 10-0 in this game. 45 unanswered for the Chargers. They're 8-3. Arizona's 2-9. Phillip Rivers, 28 of 29. Yes, I did just say 28 of 29. He had 1 incompletion in this game. 259 yards and 3 touchdowns. Josh Rosen, 12 of 19, 105 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. The Broncos upset the Steelers 24-17. A great win for Denver to put themselves back in the AFC playoff mix. They are 5-6. Pittsburgh 7-3-1. Case Keenum, 15 of 28, 197 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ben Roethlisberger, 41 of 56, 462 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. And that 1 touchdown pass was a 97-yarder to Juju Smith-Schuster in the beginning of the 3rd quarter, as the Steelers' win streak comes to an end. The Colts defeat the Dolphins 27-24 on a game-winning field goal by Adam Vinatieri. They're 6-5. Miami 5-6. Andrew Luck, another great game. 30 of 37, 343 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Ryan Tannehill is back. 17 of 25, 204 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The Vikings defeat the Packers 24-17. A huge win for Mike Zimmer and the Vikes. They are 6-4-1. Green Bay drops to 4-6-1. That's probably the death blow for the Packers season. Kirk Cousins, 29 of 38, 342 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers, 17 of 28, 198 yards, and a touchdown. Very disappointing game from Aaron Rodgers. And then tonight you have the Titans and the Texans. Big game in the AFC South. The AFC South has 3 interesting teams. You have the Texans, who are currently riding a 7-game win streak. It could very well come to an end tonight. They're only a 4-point favorite. I think the Texans will win the game. I think they'll cover the 4 as well. I think this is a 7-point win for Houston. And they really have been lucky in this 7-game win streak. I got to be honest. This team really has not been what I thought. I thought this was a dark horse Super Bowl contender. They have a great pass rush, which has been good all year. What's disappointing me is Deshaun Watson really hasn't been the same since he tore his ACL. It's sort of like Carson Wentz with the Eagles, but once I saw a lot of improvement from the past weeks in that second half comeback against the Giants yesterday. Watson has, like Wentz, shown some flashes, but I'm interested to see how he plays tonight. DeAndre Hopkins finally got his first touchdown of the year. Demaryius Thomas really hasn't done anything. He's their number 2 receiver. Sammy Coates has been a surprise for them in that offense. Lamar Miller's serviceable. Meanwhile, Tennessee, Marcus Mariota will play. That is a big thing for them. I think they have a chance to win the game if Mariota is playing at a high level. And if he plays the way he did against Dallas on that Monday night game, Deion Lewis is a big part of their offense. Corey Davis is a big part of their offense. Tennessee has some injuries. They lost Delaney Walker. I believe Taylor Lewan's still out. Good pass rush, which should be able to get to Watson, who has the bad offensive line behind him. So it should be interesting to see how this game plays out. I think the key is Watson and his ability to run, because that offensive line is so bad. And it reminds me of Seattle. Russell Wilson is playing behind a bad offensive line, but his mobility has helped that team. I think the same can be said about Watson. And I'm very fascinated to see how this game goes. And then if Houston wins, they're 8-3 and would leapfrog the Steelers into the 3 spot in the AFC. That loss was brutal for Pittsburgh, but I don't think it's going to hurt them for the rest of the season. Maybe as a 1 seed, I think their chances of the 1 seed are pretty much near gone, but I wouldn't rule out the 2 seed for the Steelers. I think the Texans can be in play for the 2 seed if Pittsburgh trips up a couple times, and say for New England. So, interesting battle for the 2, 3, 4 spots in the AFC. We'll get into more playoff chatter when I do the NFL Power Rankings on tomorrow's podcast. I'm going to go through the college basketball scores from yesterday. UAB defeats Canisius 68-58. UAB is now 4-2, Canisius 1-5. Oral Roberts defeats James Madison 78-69 in overtime. Oral is 3-6 and JMU's 5-3. Wilmington defeats Eastern Illinois 82-65. Wilmington 3-4, Eastern Illinois 3-3. Duquesne defeats UMass Lowell 83-71. Duquesne 4-1 UML, my bad, 4-4. So Duquesne, a surprising 4-1 so far in the Atlantic 10. Central Michigan defeats Siena Heights 103-75. Central Michigan is now 5-1. Morgan State defeats Mount St. Mary's 78-68. Morgan State is 2-3 and Mount St. Mary's is 0-6. Villanova defeats number 14 Florida State 66-60. A big win for Villanova, who is 5-2. Florida State drops to 5-1. So the Seminoles missed a golden opportunity to get a statement win. Illinois defeats Mississippi Valley State 86-67. Illinois 2-4. Mississippi Valley State 1-6. Quinnipiac defeats Maine 58-50. Quinnipiac 2-2. Maine 0-6. Fordham defeats Alabama A&M 77-46. Fordham a surprising 5-1. Bama A&M 0-6. Liberty defeats Savannah State 82-56. Liberty 5-1. Savannah State 3-5. Bucknell defeats Vermont 69-61. Bucknell 2-2. Vermont 3-3. Columbia defeats St. Joseph's Brooklyn 85-38. Columbia gets its first win. They're now 1-4. Northwestern defeats Utah 79-57. Nice win for Chris Collins as they go to 5-1. Utah drops to 3-3. Lipscomb defeats Moorhead State 87-55. Moorhead drops to 2-4. Lipscomb goes to 5-1. Bowling Green defeats Drexel 81-71. Bowling Green 4-3. Drexel 3-3. Wichita State defeats Rice 90-61. Wichita 3-3. Rice 3-4. Florida Atlantic defeats Florida Gulf Coast 85-68. Florida Atlantic 6-1. Florida Gulf Coast a disappointing 2-6. Northern Illinois defeats Oakland 92-72. Northern Illinois 4-2. Oakland 3-4. Lafayette defeats Fairleigh Dickinson 80-76. Lafayette 2-3. Fairleigh Dickinson 3-2. Fairfield defeats Denver 86-85. Fairfield 2-5. Denver 2-4. SIU Edwardsville defeats Incarnate Word 80-68. Edwardsville 1-3. That was their first win. And Incarnate Word 4-5. William Carey upsets Southern Miss 78-72. Terrible loss for Southern Miss as they drop to 4-2 on the year. Arkansas State defeats Gardner-Webb 77-69. Arkansas State 2-4. Weber State 2-5. Central Connecticut State defeats Pine Manor 88-51. Central Con State gets to 4-3. Furman defeats UNC Asheville 65-51. Furman 7-0. Asheville 1-5. Fresno State defeats Hawaii 79-64. Fresno is 3-2. Hawaii 4-3. Oklahoma State upsets number 19 LSU 90-77. Great win for Oklahoma State. They're 4-2. LSU drops to 5-2. Oregon State defeats Long Beach State 75-72. Oregon State 5-1. Long Beach State 2-5. Purdue Fort Wayne defeats Cleveland State 82-79. Fort Wayne 4-4. Cleveland State 2-5. Stephen F. Austin defeats St. Edward 73-60. Stephen F. Austin is now 4-1. Hampton defeats Richmond 86-66. Impressive win for Hampton to go to 2-4. Richmond drops to 2-4. Towson defeats Loyola Maryland 85-69. Towson 2-4. Loyola Maryland 2-5. Seattle defeats Longwood 70-50. Seattle 6-2. Longwood 5-3. Brown defeats Bryant 84-60. Brown 5-2. Bryant 1-4. Charleston defeats Memphis 78-75. An impressive win for Charleston as they go to 5-2. Memphis drops to 3-3. USC defeats Cal State Bakersfield 90-75. USC 4-2. Bakersfield 3-3. Samford defeats South Carolina State 77-60. Samford 7-1. South Carolina State 1-6. Grand Canyon defeats LaSalle 82-70. Grand Canyon 4-3. LaSalle a dismal 0-7. Seton Hall defeats Miami 83-81. A nice win for Seton Hall as they go to 4-2. Miami gets their first loss of the year, drops to 5-1. Tonight's slate at 7 o'clock, you have Nebraska, Clemson, Wofford, South Carolina, Louisiana Tech, Delaware, Stetson, Bethune-Cookman, Glenville State, Radford, Winston-Salem, Appalachian State. 8 o'clock, Murray State, Alabama, Alcorn State, number 25, Mississippi State, Omaha, Iowa State, Eastern Michigan, TCU, A&M Corpus Christi, Rio Grande Valley, Louisiana College in Southeast Louisiana, UTSA and Houston Baptist. 9 o'clock, Minnesota, Boston College. Minnesota's undefeated. We'll see if they remain unbeaten. If they get this win, it helps their resume. And if on the flip side, Boston College 4-1. If Boston College gets this win, it boosts this resume. This could be one of those games in which the winner could be in the tournament and the loser could be in the NIT when it's all said and done this season. Number 1 Gonzaga. Yes, number 1 Gonzaga hosts North Dakota State. We'll get to the rankings in a second. Santa Clara's at Cal. 10 o'clock, Pepperdine hosts Idaho State. And 11 o'clock, number 18 Oregon hosts Texas Southern. Number 1's Gonzaga. They beat Duke, so I guess that's their reward. And they leapfrog Kansas. And it was close. Gonzaga had 32 first-place votes, and Kansas had 31. They separated by 6 points in the AP poll. And you could argue who's more deserving, Gonzaga or Kansas, for number 1 and number 2. I think beating Duke is a big deal. Kansas is beating a lot of solid teams, some solid teams that are probably going to win their mid-major leagues like Vermont and teams like that. And they obviously have the win over Michigan State and Chicago. Gonzaga obviously beat Duke, and that was a huge win for that program. They came from behind the beat a surprising Arizona team. So I really don't have a problem with Gonzaga at 1. I wouldn't have had a problem with Kansas at 1. Number 3 is Duke. 4 is Virginia. And both of those teams each got a vote for first place. Nevada's 5, Tennessee 6, Michigan 7, Auburn 8, Michigan State 9, Kentucky 10, North Carolina 11, Kansas State 12, Virginia Tech 13, Iowa 14, Florida State 15, Ohio State 16, Texas 17, Oregon 18, Purdue 19, Texas Tech 20, Buffalo 21, Wisconsin 22, Villanova is back in the rankings, they're 23, Maryland 24, and Mississippi State's 25. Maryland, Texas Tech, Ohio State, and Iowa are all new to the rankings. I think they all deserve it. They're all undefeated. And I think Minnesota is a team that can make a statement tonight. And the teams that also got votes, Arizona State, Clemson, Furman. Yes, Furman, the 7-0 Furman, the ones that beat Villanova. Creighton, LSU, Indiana, UCLA, Iowa State, St. John's, Minnesota, Miami, Syracuse, TCU, Nebraska, Arkansas, Notre Dame, UConn, Florida, UCF, Davidson, and Houston. So there is your top 25 with the others involved. NBA yesterday was a decent slate, per se. The Magic upset the Lakers 108-104. Orlando has to be the surprise of the NBA so far. They're 10-10. LA drops to 11-8. Nikola Vucevic has to be in the conversation for the most improved player of the year. 31, 15 boards and 7 assists. Aaron Gordon had 17. DJ Augustine 12 with 9 assists. Jonathan Simmons had 10 off the bench, and Terrence Ross had 16 off the bench with 6 boards. LeBron James, 24 points and 7 assists. Kyle Kuzma, 21. Brandon Ingram had 17 with 6 boards. JaVale McGee had 12 with 7 boards. Lonzo Ball had 9 with 10 boards. Lance Stevenson had 13 off the bench. The Knicks defeat the Grizzlies 103-98, and David Fizdale's return to Memphis. The Knicks have won 3 in a row. They're 7-14. And Memphis drops to 12-7. That's a very nice moment for Fizdale, getting the return, or getting a win in return to Memphis, in which he probably did not deserve the axe last year in Memphis because he got into a fight with Marc Gasol. Tim Hardaway Jr. had 22. Enes Kanter had 21 points with 26 boards. Emmanuel Mudiay had 17 in the win. He's been improved. Noah Vonleh's been an improved player for them too. Trey Burke off the bench had 15, and Alonzo Trier off the bench had 10. Marc Gasol had 27 with 8 boards. Mike Conley had 23 with 11 assists. Jaren Jackson had 16 with 6 boards. The Pistons defeat the Suns 118-107. The Pistons 10-7, Phoenix 4-15. Andre Drummond had 19 with 16 boards. Blake Griffin had 16 with 11 assists. Reggie Jackson had 19 with 8 assists. Reggie Bullock had 13. Stanley Johnson had 14 off the bench. Langston Galloway had 15 off the bench. DeAndre Ayton, 25 points and 13 boards. Devin Booker had 37. Josh Jackson and Rashawn Holmes each had 10 off the bench, and Jamal Crawford had 12 off the bench. The Hawks defeat the Hornets 124-123. The Hawks are now 4-16. Charlotte 9-10. A bad loss for Charlotte. John Collins, had 23 with 11 boards. Taurean Prince had 16. Trae Young had 18 with 5 assists. DeAndre Bembry had 16, 6 and 6 off the bench. Jeremy Lin had 12 off the bench. Kent Bazemore had 20 off the bench. Marvin Williams had 20 points and 13 boards. Kemba Walker had 22 with 9 assists. Jeremy Lamb had 13 with 8 boards. Nick Batum had 14. Frank Kaminsky had 11 off the bench. And Malik Monk had 26 off the bench, including 7 3-pointers. The 76ers defeat the Nets 127-125. Big comeback win for the Sixers, courtesy of a big 3-pointer with 2.3 seconds left by Jimmy Butler. Philly's now 14-8. Brooklyn drops to 8-13. Jimmy Butler, 34 points and 12 boards. J.J. Redick had 15. Ben Simmons had 13 with 9 assists. Joel Embiid had 32 with 12 boards. Wilson Chandler had 10. Landry Shamet off the bench had 16. D'Angelo Russell, 38, 8 and 8. He's been an improved player for the Nets since the injury to Karis LeVert. Jared Allen had 17 and 10. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson had 13 with 6 boards. Spencer Dinwiddie had 31 off the bench. The Raptors defeat the Heat 125-115. Toronto continues to amaze. They're 17-4. Miami is 7-12. Kawhi Leonard, 29 points and 10 boards. Pascal Siakam, 21 with 6 boards. Jonas Valanciunas had 17 with 10 boards. Kyle Lowry had 12 points and 10 assists. CJ Miles, Fred VanVleet, and DeLon Wright each had 10 off the bench. Dwayne Wade had 35 off the bench with 5 boards and 6 assists. He always tends to play well in Toronto for some weird reason. Josh Richardson had 19. Wayne Ellington had 10. Bam Adebayo had 16 with 21 boards off the bench. Kelly Olynyk had 12 off the bench. 11 off the bench. The Jazz defeat the Kings 113-112. Nice win for Utah. They're 9-11. Sacramento 10-10. Ricky Rubio had 27 points. Jay Crowder had 14. Rudy Gobert had 18 with 15 boards. Joe Ingles had 18 with 6 assists. No Donovan Mitchell again. Derek Favors had 11 with 7 boards off the bench. Alec Burks had 14 off the bench. Buddy Hield had 12. Bogdan Bogdanovic had 20. De'Aaron Fox had only 13. Nemanja Bjelica had 12. Marvin Bagley had 18 off the bench with 6 boards. Harry Giles had 10 off the bench. The Clippers defeat the Trailblazers 104-100. A nice win for the LA Clippers. They're 13-6. Portland 12-8. Portland's fallen apart a little bit. They had the best record in the West. And then they lost a couple games against Western Conference foes. Tobias Harris had 34 points with 11 boards. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 12. Danilo Gallinari had 17, 8 and 5. Montrezl Harrell had 14 with 10 boards. Damian Lillard had 30 with 6 boards. CJ McCollum had 18 with 9 boards. Evan Turner had 17 off the bench. Tonight's slate is 7 games deep. You have the Bucks and the Hornets at 7 o'clock, as well as the Timberwolves at the Cavaliers and the Rockets at the Wizards. I think all 3 of the home teams have a chance to win outright. They're all dogs. Hornets are getting 4.5. Cavs are getting 6. And Houston's getting 2.5. Wizards are getting 2.5. I think all 3 of them will win outright. Kemba has just been phenomenal for Charlotte. The Cavs are just playing really well. I think that Laker game sparked them a little bit, even though they lost that game. They knocked off Houston at home. I think they can knock off the Timberwolves, who are dysfunctional and a mess. Even though they started to play a little bit better after trading away Jimmy Butler, ironically enough. But I'm not buying it. That's a Ewing theory. 8 o'clock, you have the Spurs and the Bulls. I think that's a bit of a trap for San Antonio, but they know better. You have the Celtics and the Pelicans. Each team at 10-10. Big game for both teams. If Anthony Davis is there, the Pelicans will win. If not, the Celtics will win. That's just simple. 9 o'clock, you have the Pacers and the Jazz, second of a back-to-back for Utah. I think Indiana has a great chance of winning that game outright. And at 10:30, you have the Magic at the Warriors. Will the Magic continue to have magic? Can they pull out an upset as an 8-point dog? Probably not, but Golden State has been having trouble with some of these overachieving teams. I know they barely beat the Kings. The Magic are coming off the upset over the Lakers, so there's letdown potential for Orlando there. That's your case for a Golden State win by double digits. Now let's go to hockey. Only 4 games were on the slate. Last night the Flames defeated the Coyotes 6-1. Impressive win for Calgary. They are 14-9-1. Arizona 9-11-2. They've fallen off since their little hot run. The number 1 star with 2 goals, Noah Hannafin. The number 2 star with 2 goals, Mark Janikowski. And number 3 star with the goal, Clayton Keller. The Lightning defeat the Devils 5-2. The Lightning are 17-6-1. The Devils are 9-10-3. Number 1 star with 2 goals and assists, Braden Point. Number 2 star of the game with 2 assists, Nikita Kucherov. And the number 3 star of the game, Ryan McDonough. The Predators defeat the Ducks 5-2. The Predators go to 17-6-1. Anaheim 10-10-5. Number 1 star of the game with a hat trick, Austin Watson. The number 2 star of the game with a goal and assist, Nick Bonino. And the number 3 star of the game with 2 assists, Colton Sissons. The Kings defeat the Oilers 5-2. Los Angeles goes to 8-14-1. Edmonton 10-11-2. Number 1 star of the game with a goal and 2 assists, Anze Kopitar. Number 2 goal of the game with a hat trick, Dustin Brown. And number 3 star of the game with 2 goals, Alex Chiasson. Tonight's slate is only 5 deep. You have at 7 o'clock the Senators at the Rangers, 2 of the surprise teams of the NHL. Bruins Maple Leafs is a good one. That's probably the best game on the board. Devils Panthers, Capitals Islanders, and 7:30 have the Blue Jackets and the Red Wings. Now I'm going to do some news items real quick. We'll start in hockey. The Philadelphia Flyers had fired GM Ron Hextall. That team's been an underachiever so far this season. I thought it was going to be the coach that was going to get let go, Dave Hakstol, but it's surprisingly they let go of Ron Hextall, their GM. And he really has done a great job there, and I think somebody else will hire him eventually because I think he did a nice job there. The issue there is that they never found a stud goaltender. They probably should have never gotten rid of Sergei Bobrovsky. I believe that was in 2012 when they got rid of him and shipped him off to Columbus. He really has helped rejuvenate Columbus post the Rick Nash trade. And Philadelphia has been getting weird goaltenders and different types of situations in goal. Like you had Michael Newsworth. You had Steve Mason, who was good for them for a while, but not good enough. You also have Brian Elliott there right now. And it's just really not great. And I thought there was a chance that they'd trade for a goalie that could have been available at the deadline this year, like Ottawa's Craig Anderson, which I wouldn't be floored if he was moved at the deadline this year. But I really expected them to improve that position to really put them over the top. And that was my pick to win the Metropolitan Division this year. And by the way, that division's still wide open. It's for the taking. They're not the only underachiever in that division. Pittsburgh and Washington, I think, have fallen short of expectations. I think Columbus has done a nice job. The Rangers have obviously been the big surprise in that division. Islanders have also been a surprise in that division. Devils have been a disappointment this year, especially Corey Schneider. So that division is still wide open for the taking, but Philadelphia has been a mess, and the GM gets the axe. And I'm interested to see who could replace him. Maybe Dean Lombardi. Maybe if Chicago makes a move, maybe Stan Bowman could be available. Steve Yzerman's out there. So I'm interested to see who replaces Hextall. NFL news, Blake Bortles was benched for Cody Kessler. And this comes in the wake of the Jaguars making a big change to their coaching staff this morning after the firing of Nate Hackett. That really has been a disappointing team this year, the Jaguars, especially in the AFC. I think they're the biggest disappointment in the AFC this year. You could argue the biggest disappointment in the league, but I still think the biggest disappointment in the league has been Philadelphia, just because they won the Super Bowl a year ago, and now they're 5-6 in a year that many people thought that they had a chance to repeat with the return of Carson Wentz, but Jacksonville's been a huge disappointment after making the AFC title game a year ago. A lot of bad karma went their way with Jalen Ramsey preseason, talking trash about every quarterback, especially what he said about Josh Allen. That's what made the Josh Allen return game pretty impressive from both his passing, even though it was limited, and his ability to run in the game. But the Jaguars make their first of what I think is plenty of moves to come for them within the next couple months with the firing of offensive coordinator Nate Hackett and the benching of Blake Bortles for former USC castoff Cody Kessler. And speaking of USC, that's news that didn't happen. The not firing of Clay Helton. USC came out with a statement yesterday saying that Clay Helton will return despite a disastrous 5-7 season. I think that is the wrong move. Clay Helton is still on the hot seat. I think he's the coach under the most pressure next year to win. We'll see how the Pac-12 shakes out for next season, especially the South. I think UCLA will obviously get better. JT Daniels, the case for USC is JT Daniels makes a sophomore leap, and his supporting cast gets better around him. So there you go with that. And obviously I think the North is the better of the divisions with the elite coaching with Chris Peterson. And David Shaw is still a good coach, even though Stanford underachieved this year as well. Larry Fedora is fired as the UNC football coach. That's not surprising. Mac Brown, the former Texas coach, is the front runner for that job. So that would be his second stint in North Carolina. Texas Tech fired Cliff Kingsbury. Not surprised. They were 5-2 and ranked, and then they fell apart. I think the Kingsbury firing should have happened a few years ago, but they just kept overachieving, and it finally happened. I'm interested to see who the candidates would be for that job. You know there's going to be more jobs opening. Central Michigan fired their coach. I think another job that could potentially be open if things really don't pan out could very well be Ohio State, but I think that's more of a long shot now that they upset Michigan. The case for Michigan being open is if Jim Harbaugh leaves for an NFL job like the Jets, but I just don't even see that. And I'm disappointed that SC brought back Clay Helton, because if they fired Clay Helton, that would have been more drama for this podcast and more chatter about who could possibly replace Helton and other dominoes that could fall, because there was rumored that both Harbaugh brothers would have been in play for SC, as well as former Raiders coach Jack Del Rio. Chris Peterson from Washington would have been in play, and there would have been another handful of guys in play for that job. If more coaching firings happen in college football within the next couple days, I'm sure there'll be more of them. Then we'll talk about, obviously, Fedora, as I mentioned, and Mac Brown's probably going to get that job. And then Louisville's open. They fired Bobby Petrino a few weeks ago. The thought is that Jeff Brom's going to get that job, the Purdue coach. And the move that didn't happen was SC not letting go of Clay Helton, which shocked me, per se, because I've been saying on the podcast for weeks, when's USC going to fire Clay Helton? And then, obviously, Texas Tech fired Cliff Kingsbury. Les Miles was hired at Kansas. I think that's a nice hire for them. He could really bolster that program a little bit and make them relevant in the Big 12. So there's some intrigue still to come in college football in terms of coaching changes. MLB news. The Braves made two moves today. They brought back catcher Brian McCann on a 1-year, $2 million deal. I think that's a steal for Atlanta. McCann turned down other offers to go back to the Braves. That's a nice move for McCann and the Braves. They needed another catcher since Kurt Suzuki left to go to Washington. So they'll have McCann. I think McCann will start over Tyler Flowers. I'm not a fan of Flowers, and McCann back in Atlanta, I think, would rejuvenate him just a little bit. And I think that pitching staff will be very happy too. And I think he'll be a big help to those young pitchers who are trying to break through, like Touki Toussaint, unless if any of those guys are traded, which is still not out of the realm of possibility because I think the Braves need some proven starting pitching and will be in the market for some. So just keep an eye on that. And they also bring in Josh Donaldson on a 1-year, $23 million contract. This made sense. I don't think Johan Camargo is the answer at third base, at least for now. I really don't think the Braves thought that either. He had a career year a year ago, 19 homers. Now there's talk that he's going to play right field, which I don't agree with at all. I just think he was an aberration last year. Good job by the Braves getting Donaldson on a 1-year deal, and that's exactly what I predicted on my offseason predictions podcast a few weeks ago. I thought that Donaldson would get a 1-year deal from them and then prove himself a little bit, and then Austin Riley would come up and be their third baseman of the future. But if Donaldson proves that he's still a decent player in this league, I wouldn't be stunned if Riley is trade bait and used in a deal to get a starting pitcher or perhaps a right fielder if they miss out on Bryce Harper, because they're rumored to be in play for Harper. And if Nick Markakis leaves and if there are no other options, then they can trade for somebody and use Austin Riley as a piece potentially. And they can use Johan Camargo as a trade piece too. So the Braves have some options even with the signings of veterans Josh Donaldson and Brian McCann. Best bet is the last thing I'm going to do before I close out. I am wagering 50 cents to win $7.24 with a potential payout of $7.74 with odds of plus 1448. I am taking a 5-team hockey moneyline parlay. The Toronto Maple Leafs over the Boston Bruins. The Maple Leafs have been hot. John Tavares is playing very well. Mitch Marner's playing very well. Frederik Andersen's been playing great. I just like the spot in their home building. The Florida Panthers over the New Jersey Devils. The Devils are just not playing well at all. Corey Schneider has not been good since coming back from his injury. Keith Kincaid isn't really the answer either, and they're just a bad team away from home. So the Panthers, to me, is a good bet. The New York Rangers over the Ottawa Senators. The Senators have been giving up goals left and right, but that's because of their poor defensive play rather than Craig Anderson, even though Anderson's been overused this year. The Rangers have lost 2 straight against division opponents. Henrik Lundqvist should be back in net tonight. He's been playing great all year, especially at home. And the Rangers as a team have been playing well at home. They could have beaten Philly and they could have beaten Washington if things went their way. I expect them to bounce back at home against a bad Sens team. The New York Islanders over the Washington Capitals. The Islanders are actually an underdog in this game. The Rangers, Panthers, and Leafs are all favored. The Islanders are the lone underdog I'm taking on this. This is Barry Trotz's revenge game against the Capitals. And I think the Capitals are going to regret letting go of Barry Trotz and not paying him. And I really like Anders Lee and the Islanders to come out and get a home win as an underdog tonight over the reigning champs. And I like the Columbus Blue Jackets on the road at Detroit. They're a slim road favorite. I'm just not a fan of this Detroit team. Jimmy Howard's been playing well, but I think Sergei Bobrovsky's better. I like Cam Atkinson and how he's been playing. Pierre-Luc Dubois has been playing well. And Seth Jones has been back from injury for a while now, and he has been playing very well. So I really like the Blue Jackets to be the lone road team to get a win in the National Hockey League tonight. So here you go again. Toronto Maple Leafs, Florida Panthers, New York Rangers, New York Islanders, Columbus Blue Jackets, moneyline parlay. Plus 1448 to win $7.24 with a payout of $7.74. Only wagering 50 cents on this, courtesy of FanDuel. Tomorrow we'll be back recapping college basketball, Monday Night Football, NBA, NHL. do my college football power rankings and playoff ranking predictions. I'll do my NFL power rankings. And I'll go over any other news that happens in the world of sports. I hope you guys have a great day, everyone.